Hey guys, what's going on? My name's Akil, and welcome to the final review for the Dark Knight trilogy, guys. Yes, we made it to the end. I just got done watching The Dark Knight Rises, and boy oh boy do I love this movie. Those of you, for those of you guys who don't know, I made a list back in 2018, and it was my top 10 favorite films of all time, and this film was on there, and film is still on that list. However, there are definitely more movies I need to watch, more classic films. However, the list is very different, if not a lot, much more different to what it was back in 2018, which was like 3 years ago since I did that with. So it's been a while. I am planning on updating it at some point in like 2 years, just to kind of like show where I'm at when it comes to like movies and all that, because it will be by 2 years time in 2023 from the time I'm doing this, but 2023 in general, it will be 5 years since I did that first video of my top 10 favorite films of all time. So maybe every 5 years I'll do one of those type of videos. But anyway, Dark Knight Rises is a great film. I have no problems with it because it is one of my top 10 favorites. I consider this a masterpiece in my opinion. This is a perfect film like Inception, which I don't think I'll get to, but at some point I do actually want to talk about that film this year on my channel. But anyway, I'm going to jump right into it because I did write quite a bit down for this movie, especially towards the latter half of the film. But this film is amazing right from the start. And speaking of right from the start, obviously this movie opens up with the Warner Bros. DC Legendary and Singapore Go-Go's and Gordon talking. But then I also noticed something about the Batman logo. How like how every one of these three films started with showing like the Dark Knight logo or the Batman logo in the Christopher Nolan trilogy in this case. And the first one, it's like the bats forming to make the bat symbol. The second one, it's like blue and like smoke coming towards you. And then the third one, it's like cracking. So it's like showing like this is like the end of the story, but also kind of rising up in a way. Hence the title, The Dark Knight Rises. And this movie opens up very well. We get a great opening scene involving Bane on the plane, and the way he says, and then the way the actor that plays Littlefinger of Game of Thrones says, he's like, "What's the next step of your master plan?" And he's like crashing this plane, and his voice, man, Tom Hardy, can I just say, he's amazing in this movie. He's so good. And yeah, Bane is by far one of the coolest villains I've ever seen in any movie. I mean, Joker's obviously great, but so is Liam Neeson as Ra's al Ghul, and Aaron Eckhart as Two Face, Cillian Murphy as Scarecrow, and Hathaway as Catwoman, etc., etc. Like the whole cast in these movies are like top notch. They did such a great job getting all these actors here, and coming off the heels of Warrior, I'm sure Tom Hardy was kind of born to play this type of big, muscly role. Like he was great in Warrior, which came out like a year prior to The Dark Knight Rises. And while I didn't see it back then in the theaters, I was like still too young. I was like 11, 12 years old. I probably didn't even know what the heck Warrior was back then, to be honest with you. It's still a great film, and both movies he gives a great performance. I don't know which one I prefer. Maybe, oh, I mean, movie wise, yeah, obviously The Dark Knight Rises, but I don't know which performance I prefer better him in. But anyway, yeah, so the movie opens up very well. We get a great opening, and then obviously we cut. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. We see there's like this event talking about Harvey Dent, played by Aaron Eckhart in the last movie, and this movie kind of takes place, I should say, 8 years after the events of the ending of the Dark Knight, because Batman, aka Bruce Wayne Batman, took the blame for the fall of Harvey Dent, and however, he took Gordon also stuff at the end of the last movie. If you guys remember, I talked about that last week on channel Monday. While I didn't rewatch the film, I still had some things to say about it. So yeah, because I want to be committed to you guys and not breaking my promises. So, yeah, so Batman and Gordon kind of took the forward at the same time, if you know what I mean. They kind of explain that in the film, and we get a good first scene between Bruce and Selina, because Selina Kyle, played by Anne Hathaway in the movie, she's kind of like one of the major characters in the film, and the way he's introduced, we get that nice, beautiful Hans Zimmer score in the background. I don't know what theme is that. I'm gonna call it the Bruce Wayne theme for now because it's awesome. And like Bruce Wayne just shoots an arrow, uses bow and arrow to shoot, like almost shoot, which we kill Catwoman in the film within like the first 10-15 minutes, and it's crazy. So right off the bat, this is not only going to be a much more larger scaled film because of the previous action scene before, but also a much more emotional film. And this is by far the most emotional DC film I've ever seen. Like it really is. Snyder Cut has emotion, but this is like top tier emotion. And It works really, really well. But then obviously we go more forward into the film. Like I said, like if you guys have followed my channel, you know I don't like to talk about everything when it comes to the notes I take down. Unlike the Hobbit trilogy, where I actually went in depth, scene by scene, talked about one thing I liked and one thing I didn't like, if there was any in the scene. And I'm jumping forward now to the first scene where we see Batman in the film, because that scene is by far one of the best like first appearances in any superhero movie period. Like it is so cool to see that character back on screen. And you know, while I did just see Batman Begins 2 weeks ago, it's still awesome to see that scene, and it works so well. And that scene is amazing because the whole context, in the context of the film, it's great, but also like just stand alone, like it works really well. And then I like this police officer telling this younger police officer, is like, boy, you are in for a show tonight, son. It's so good. I love that stuff. And then the young cop tries to shoot him, and he's like, sorry. It's so good. And obviously Christian Bale is great as Batman as always, and just seeing him in this movie is great. And then he comes back home after he saves the day in that one scene. Also, the music in that scene is great. I mean, I've already talked about Hans Zimmer's score. James Newton Howard did not do this movie though. It was just Hans Zimmer. And this movie might just have my favorite piece of music like ever. The Rise theme, like the song called Rise in the soundtrack, which is used in the last like 7 minutes of the film. If you listen to it on the soundtrack and then watch the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It is just perfection. I love that scene. It is that piece of music. It is emotional. It is like epic as hell when it needs to be, and it works so well. But then after that, going back to this review, after Batman has his first epic debut and appearance in the film, we get to see a great emotional scene between Bruce and Alfred. And then Alfred's like, no, I won't help you do this anymore, because he, in this whole trilogy, does not want Bruce to like kill himself and go off the edge, you know? Like he's already done stuff like that before in like the last movie, and especially the last film, The Dark Knight. Like he was doing all this crazy stuff. He was considering breaking his one rule, but he didn't, and all that. This movie, we see Alfred like really in an emotional scene telling him no, like I can't, and he's using Rachel against him. Bruce is like, how dare you use Rachel against me? And it's just so well done. The writing in this movie is perfect. The Nolan brothers wrote the film, Jonathan and Chris Nolan. I actually thought it was just Chris, but no, it was both of them. And they did such a great job in the film. So props to you guys. And Jonathan Nolan, by the way, Westworld is amazing. Not one of my top 10 favorite shows, but has the potential to be, because season 1 was flat out almost near perfect in my opinion. Minus just with a few couple of flaws here and there. But anyway, going back to the film, yeah, this review again. Sorry, I'm jumping over place and mumbling as I always do about random stuff. But anyway, Bruce and Alfred, that scene is amazing, and they did such a great job with the dialogue in that scene. And Bruce is like, goodbye, Alfred. And it's kind of like a goodbye in a way, if you know what I mean. Because that really is the final scene we get to see of Christian Bale and Michael Caine in the movie, like in the whole trilogy. And it's so sad, but it works so well. It's kind of like Logan. Like last night, me and my brother watched Logan. Actually, no, 2 nights ago, me and my brother watched Logan. He had never seen it. He's me and him just recently went through almost all the X-Men movies minus a couple ones, because he wanted to watch some of the old ones again, and hadn't really seen some of the new ones yet and all that. And it's kind of like that, like, you know, Patrick Stewart in Logan and Hugh Jackman as Logan, aka Wolverine, kind of saying goodbye to each other in a certain way. And it's kind of like that here. It's except Michael Caine's character Alfred does not die in the film. In The Dark Knight Returns Part 2, the animated film, which kind of felt like this at times, like if you watch that, kind of like the epilogue, the final chapter, both him and Alfred are very old in that film. This one, obviously, they're not that old, but still, that film, like, Alfred just collapses, like he just dies, which is kind of sad. Anyway, going back to this review, we go forward into the film a bit more, because we finally get the fight scene everyone's been waiting for. Everyone since like 1997, I believe, since Batman and Robin came out, have been asking, when are we going to get a Batman and Bane legitimate proper fight scene? And this movie delivered this fight scene in like right below Wayne Enterprises as well. It's so amazing. Like the way it's shot, the way it's directed. Like there's no music at all, except for the last couple of seconds and minutes of the fight. It's amazing. Like it works so well. And then the dialogue between the two, especially Bane, he's like, it works so well. Actually, there's no dialogue between the two because it's just Bane talking. But Batman does say stuff before, like he's like, "You made a serious mistake," and then Bane's like, "Not as serious as yours." And then he calls him Mr. Wayne because he knows who he is, and he says like some great dialogue and some iconic lines. Oh, you think darkness is your ally? I was born in the dark, molded by you. Yeah, we know what he's talking about. It's so good. Tom Hardy, man, he's awesome, and he literally carries him and snaps his back, like breaks his back. It's so iconic. Like if you read the Batman Nightfall comic, you know what I'm talking about. If you see my channel, you know I've got it, and it's amazing. No one chooses such great iconic moments of Batman comic book history to put in these movies, and it works also well. And the look on Catwoman's face, she's like, oh shit, what have I done? Like, what's going on here? It's not really good. Like, have I let Bruce to die? Like, because I think she kind of knows that Bruce is Batman, and I also not only that, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character, who's also great in the film, by the way, he plays a guy called Blake, John Blake or something, yeah. And obviously, if you've seen the whole film, you know that at the end of the film, it's eventually revealed to be Robin, and that's so good. I love that reveal. They kept it to the last moment, but I guess people kind of saw that coming. Like they could have used another persona like Tim Drake or Jason Todd, whatever. But anyway, it's all the same, you know. But anyway, he did such a great job in the film, and he also knows, I think, too, that it's pretty obvious that he knows that Bruce and Batman are one the same person, and it works really, really well. But then after that, but so after that, Batman is put in this like chain into like this, in this underground place, this pit basically, and the only way he can escape, anyone can escape, is making the climb. So he really has to push himself. But before that, I do want to talk about one quick scene. This is a great scene. By the way, this is a great thing involving explosions around Gotham. And by that I mean, there's a part in the film where there's all these explosions happening everywhere, and the way they did it, the way Nolan films it, is so big, grand, epic, cinematic, huge scaled. It's unlike anything I think I've seen in any super movie before. Like Endgame and this are two very big, grand, epic super movies, and they feel very, very different. Like even this movie, I compared to Endgame quite a bit. Like the first act is, you know, slow for the right reasons. I mean, the first act isn't really slow, but it's kind of like the exciting build up to when Batman finally makes his debut and return on the big screen in this film. The second act is slowed down for the right reasons, and the third act is all out insanity. That is exactly like Endgame, but instead, Endgame has three different acts that make it three different films. This is kind of like that too. The first act, we have kind of like this action drama. The second act is just a slow burn drama, and the third act is an epic war movie type of film and superhero film, if you know what I mean. And because yes, this is a superhero movie, but it also kind of has a war epic drama feel to it. So yeah, and it's awesome how they did all the explosions, the bridges collapsing, and yeah, I know nothing like this actually happened. Maybe, who knows? But it's crazy to see that Bane as a villain is just so powerful and imposing, a great figure, and he just does. Tom Hardy, man, just does such a great job in the film. Then we have a great scene with Bruce making the climb. Now, obviously, again, I'm jumping forward, but the climb, oh my goodness me, Deshi Deshi Basra Basra. That chant, which means rise, is so good. And then the moment you see the bats flying out of like nowhere, like you know what like this hole or something, you know that he's gonna make the climb because he failed twice. He failed twice. And the third time, you know how they always say third time's a charm, right? Yeah. I know how that sounds, but whatever. Yeah, he made it and it worked so well, and the chanting in the background, the music, it's so good. Like I would really have no flaws with this movie, guys. I'm serious. I'm just praising this film, to be honest with you, and I know people don't like that, but hey, that's what I'm doing. So yeah, anyway, now we're jumping a bit more forward. We have a good scene involving the return of Batman, because Batman is now back. Bruce Wayne is back into Gotham, and we get to see Batman returning. He's telling Gordon light up these like flares of smoke or whatever. And we get to see the bat signal. Bane's like impossible. The look on Matthew Modine's face, who's also really good in the film, even though he barely does a lot in the film. But I like that he was obviously credited towards the end, but in the credits, of course. But yeah, he did a great job. Or good job, whatever. And the look on his face is like, oh wow, Batman's back. and his kids are all happy excited. Bane's face, man. Bane's like, oh, okay, this guy is not dying easily. How? He's like, impossible. And then Bane at the end of the film, if you watch the final battle, which I'll get to very soon, is like, like I broke you. And he's like, how'd you come back and all that? But before that, I have to say there's a great fight scene involving cops and Bane's man, because the cops in this movie are put through the test here. Like Batman lets them get out because Bane has kidnapped everyone and tortured, killed a lot of people. He and his men, his mercenaries, and the way they film it, it's like they're running towards each other. It's so grand and epic. I've never seen something like this in any DC movie or superhero movie up to this point, where normal people are just fighting at each other. You would think the superheroes would know. This is normal people. Cops versus mercenaries. So, aka Bane's men. It is crazy. It is insane. And that's why I mean, guys, this is kind of like a war movie at times. Like how I talked about One Piece season 4 towards the end of that season being a war movie. And then, of course, we get a great final showdown between Bane and Batman, of course. And then the way he says, so you came back to die with your city. And then Batman says in his Batman voice, no, I came back to stop you. And it's so good. Like, you know what's funny about that scene? That dialogue, what I just said just then, my friend would say the Bane part, I would say the Batman part, and it's great. No, I'm not doing that for you guys, unfortunately, but it's so good. And then, of course, we have the fight scene and all that, and it works so well. But then we get a good reveal about Miranda's past, because this is actually the scene that will probably shock a lot of people, that Miranda in the film, Miranda Tate, played by Marion Cotillard in the film. She also does a great job. She worked with Nolan before as well in Inception and all that. Her role in the film is very interesting because you think she's a good guy, or a good girl, I should say, and she kind of has a romantic interest for Bruce, like Serena does. So maybe there's a bit of a love triangle there, but not really. But we never really see it happen, so that's good. But anyway, we find out that she is actually Talia al Ghul, Ra's al Ghul's daughter, aka Liam Neeson's character. Yes, that's interesting. And I like how they kept it to the end, because throughout the whole film, we're trying to piece together who's this child, who's the mercenary, who made the crime. Bane is the mercenary. Liam Neeson is the mercenary. Bane was Talia's protector. Talia is the one that made the crime. It's so good. I love how they tied it all up very, very well to the end. Her death scene, though, was so dumb. I was like, oh, that's it and all that. But I do like how, like, she talked about the past just before she died and all that. And obviously, Batman and Serena have a few final moments together, and this is obviously towards the end of the film, which I just saw not that long ago. And we get a great final scene between Gordon and Batman, because Gordon wants to know who Batman is, and he's telling him stuff. He's like, even as reassuring as putting a coat around a young boy's shoulders and telling him the world's gonna be okay. Yeah, wow, I still remember that. Well, I did just watch the movie, but anyway, yeah, that dialogue is so impactful. I can't remember the whole speech, obviously, but it's so good. And Batman, man, like, you find when you see that scene where they show the same scene again while we're showing Batman again, it's about him Gordon putting the coat around Bruce Wayne's young Bruce Wayne's shoulders. It hits so hard, like you feel the emotions, you feel the tears, and it works so well. And I'm sure a lot of people cried in theater back in 2012 when this movie came out. And then, of course, Batman takes the bomb out of the city. We get a great final shot of Batman. He's like, he's not doing anything. He's just like, he has that look on his face like, that's it, it's over for me. But then we obviously get a great ending to this amazing trilogy, because we get the music. This is where Rise really hits hard. The epic music that we're used to seeing in these films. It works so well. We literally get to see Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character literally rising up on the platform. We get to see Alfred looking at Bruce and Selina as his wish finally came true, that he finally found peace and happiness and escaped from his death. Morgan Freeman wants to find out who Bruce how Batman escaped the autopilot and all that, like, and he wants to find out about the ID, and it's actually Bruce Wayne. So then he also realizes that it's Batman. Gordon realizes, everyone realizes now at this point. There's a statue. Speak of Gordon looks at the statue in memoriam for Batman, and the look on his face is like, oh man, I can't work with him anymore. But I like how, and this is so nice, like he stands out right on top of the police building, wherever they did that scene and all that. And the bat signal is right there. And he's just looking like he's waiting for Batman to come. Like he just thinks like, it's another normal day between him and Batman. And it's so nice, so sweet. I love that. And this is just a great ending to this amazing trilogy. Guys, we are done. We are done with the Dark Knight trilogy, guys. I've had so much fun talking about these three movies of the past couple of weeks. Although I did not get a chance to rewatch The Dark Knight, it's an amazing film, and all three of these films are amazing. Batman Begins 8 out of 10, Dark Knight Rises 8 out of 10, or 8.5 out of 10 actually, and The Dark Knight Rises a 10 out of 10. I love these films. Nolan is still currently my favorite director of all time, and I cannot wait to talk about Inception, which is the final film of his films I want to talk about for now. So anyway, guys, that is it. That is the end of the Dark Knight trilogy. We are done with another franchise. I've talked about the four Pirates of the Caribbean movies now, except for the fifth one, the Hobbit trilogy, and not the Lord of the Rings, even though I was planning to that same year in 2019, but no, I didn't. Just the Hobbit trilogy, the three films, split across 6 videos, and also the Harry Potter films last year in 2020. I talked about all 8 films, minus Fantastic Beasts, I should say also, in case you're wondering, because it's in the same universe. And now I've talked about this. So yeah, guys, that is it. Another franchise down. Wow, 4 franchises. Well, technically 4 and 3/4 because there's only one Pirates film I didn't talk about. Yeah, if you want to count like that. So yeah, 2 trilogies done and 2 big franchises kind of done. And yeah, next up is going to be Inception for my in-depth reviews this year. And then I am planning on doing classic reviews also this year, guys. So last year I did Scream, as like if you guys remember back on my channel last year in October. And then this Friday will be my final catch-up review for now. Voyages, I still want to see that sooner rather than later. Also, Black Widow is coming out very, very soon. I'm very excited for that movie. Now that I've seen Godzilla vs. Kong, that is still my most anticipated film of the year. But when I see that, Spider-Man will be. And speaking of Spider-Man, the trailer should be coming out any day now. Come on, Sony and Marvel, give us this trailer. But anyway, I'm very excited to see all those movies coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching these series of in-depth reviews. If you have watched them, if you have watched all of them, if you haven't, that's okay. But anyway, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. My name's Akil, otherwise known as the Comic Director, and I'm signing out.